Are you a man who has a less than stellar sex life? I would say on a whole, most guys would raise their hand on that. For those who do, and you come on YouTube and you're trying to figure out like why your wife doesn't want to sleep with you. Is it her? Is it me? What's the problem here? And there's all kinds of advice on the internet. And yes, while trying to figure out what actually makes women tick, what actually drives a woman's sexual attraction is complex. There are some common myths that as a woman, I'm going to tell you, no, man, this isn't it. So let's get right into it. The first one is that it's your technique. You see a lot of times our men on the internet teaching other young men on the internet the idea that a woman doesn't want to sleep with you because your technique sucks. That if you just learned to give her more orgasms or better orgasms, that she would want to have sex with you more. This idea is false. I mean, your technique can't suck, but if your technique was the problem, it's highly unlikely she would have married you to begin with. And yes, there is an orgasm gap, which is just the unequal frequency in which a man and a woman achieves orgasm. But an orgasm is just not much of a factor when it comes to the satisfaction of the experience, as you guys would think it is. Why do I say this? Well, it's because much of the pleasure a woman gets from sex is very mental rather than solely being a physical act. An orgasm isn't always the goal. Now, if it never happened, that's certainly going to be a problem. But assuming things have not drastically changed with your technique since you got married and you magically went from being good to sucking, like I don't know how that would happen, then it's probably not the case. It's probably not the reason why she's not wanting to sleep with you. What the guys on the internet who teach this idea don't understand. Men are men, and they don't understand how a woman's brain works. They falsely assume that sex is even on her mind at all. How can she be thinking about the frequency or the quality of her orgasms if sex isn't even on her mind? For women, sex does not typically spontaneously pop into our brains a whole lot. We just aren't wired that way. Typically, we start thinking about sex in response to something. There's either a biological input of ovulation or some external input that gets the ball rolling. And if there's no input there, our brains just don't think about it. And this is why we typically don't initiate as much as you guys do. We don't have that high level of testosterone flowing through our body all the time, tapping us on the shoulder saying, hey, it's time to get naked. So without that internal biological prompting being as prevalent as men's, then there has to be some kind of external prompting that puts sex on the radar. But the idea of a woman sitting around pondering the nuances of sex is very much a male way of thinking. We have all kinds of things swirling around in our brain all the time. And trust me when I say that, most of the time, sex isn't one of them. And if it's in there, it is way, way down on the list of priority to all the other thoughts that are occupying that same space. We just don't sit around thinking about the physical act and the processes involved, analyzing and reverse engineering the quality and the quantity of our orgasms. That's just all too logical. And frankly, that just sounds exhausting to me as a woman. And even when sex does come into our minds, we're not even thinking about it the same way you guys do. We're not thinking about the actual act. It's more about the feelings, the emotion, the circumstances of how it came to be. Essentially, the backstory. The act itself is just the outcome, a secondary element in the experience. That's why erotic novels are the woman's version of porn. It's all about the circumstances and the buildup, leading to sex that makes us horny. For women, the buildup is primary, the act is secondary, and the orgasm is tertiary. And this is also why we don't have to have an orgasm to feel like we've been fucked good and to thoroughly enjoy the experience. If it happens, it's a bonus, a cherry on top. But for men, the act itself is the goal. That is not true for women. The second myth of why women don't want to sleep with their husbands is that it was all about cash and prizes. Now, my comment section is filled with all kinds of jaded men who have had bad experiences with women that claim that all women are out there solely for financial gain, that sex was simply a tool for her, where she would then be eligible for all kinds of cash and prizes. I'm speaking to is in regards to intent. And I'm in no way saying that the divorce laws don't need work, especially when it comes to child support. I think that's really where you guys get boned more than the whole division of assets thing, because prior assets are already protected in most states. But the child support calculations are absolutely absurd. But even all of those laws are not gender specific, but that's a whole nother topic. But why do I say this is a myth? It's because women are just not that strategic. No woman thinks, hey, I am not really attracted to this guy, but yeah, let's date for a few years. Then we'll get married, have a couple of kids, Poor sucker. Now he's on the hook. Whoa. And so yes, while we do have an expectation that a man does provide some level of basic income, some decent level of stability in which we can actually have a family and build a life with, most women don't expect all men to be making all kinds of oodles of money. If there's more, we certainly won't complain. But guys, come on. I know you want answers of why your wife doesn't want to sleep with you or why her interest is low. But this premeditated cash and prize plan, it's just not it. Like if she was that money driven, a much better plan would have been to just sign up for OnlyFans, because even the most basic average looking woman can find thousands of men to hand over their money. She wouldn't limit herself to one dude. But I'm just not going to get behind the fact that marriage for the majority of women, that marriage is some kind of preconceived evil master plan, because that whole idea is just stupid. And women are many things, but stupid is not one of them. Now, where this does happen is in the cases of women who marry celebrities or men who are actually wealthy. And I'm not talking about some kind of like upper middle class type of wealth. I'm talking about like millions and billions. I'm talking Jeff Bezos level. I'm sure his fiance really loves him for his heart. But this situation isn't something that the average Joe is going to have to worry about. So there are always exceptions for tiny little segments of men who are truly wealthy or who have a societal power of notoriety. But when speaking about normal, everyday, average women and normal, everyday, average men, this is not going to be the case. Now, I will concede that there is a point in the relationship where a woman does start to think about these cash and prizes, as you all like to put it. And that is if or when she ever starts thinking about leaving. Women have no idea what the divorce and child support laws are until she needs to know. Women are thinking the same way about men as men think about women during the dating phase, and it's, can I see myself spending the rest of my life with this person? So if or when she is thinking about potentially leaving, this is when she's going to start doing some research, but not before. Today's episode is sponsored by Cup Cozy Pillow. It is the world's best cup holder. And I'm not just saying this because I'm the inventor and the owner. Seriously, go to Amazon. We have over 10,000 reviews. So if you ever need a cup holder anywhere you don't have one, Cup Cozy Pillow is where it's at. Next, I'd like to remind you that I have a new free community. It's just really a great place where we take the conversations we start here and move them off to a different platform to where we can have an ongoing discussion. Did you know that I have been friend zoned by 81% of my viewers? That is right. 81% of you guys who watch my channel have not subscribed. So, well, don't friend zone me, okay? Another common myth of why women don't want to sleep with their husband is that men believe she just settled, that she was never truly attracted to him because she couldn't land the Chad that she wanted to truly be with. Is this true? Did she actually just settle for you? Now, I think there might be some truth in this, because I think almost all women would certainly opt to marry that movie star, maybe whether it's Brad Pitt or Jason Momoa or Ryan Reynolds, if they were given the chance. These guys are all good looking, they're wealthy, they're celebrities, they're the whole ball of wax. But this isn't any more likely than the chances of you being able to land and marry that hot Instagram model that you have been following. So the truth is, we all want the best deal that we can get. That's not a bad thing. But if you want to claim that she's settled, at least call yourself out on it as well. But what you're going to find if you actually just used your eyeballs out in the public is that people typically end up with people who are pretty comparable to themselves. And that's physically, financially, socially. So yes, she will select the best deal for herself that she can reasonably get. And that is you. At least at the time of the wedding it was. Another myth of why women don't want to sleep with their husband is that she chooses to turn off sex, that it's an intentional choice. But the reality is that often we're just as surprised as you guys. It is not something that we know is going to happen ahead of time. Like, I had no idea that one day things would be very dry down there. It would become like the Sahara Desert, that I would mentally be ready to go, but there would be some kind of disconnect in my body. My body didn't get the message. And because sex is a taboo subject for the majority of people, these types of discussions are not happening on a large enough scale. At least in the past, we have the internet now, and the fact that we can get this kind of information out to the masses, that's going to help. But I know I was never told that this was going to happen, but we haven't in the past been educated enough to understand and be properly prepared with the information of how natural aging is going to affect our sex life and therefore our marriage. In fact, this idea is so foreign that when I bring up this topic to young women, that there will come a time when they have no sexual interest in sleeping with their husband, that there will be a time when they will look over at him and be attracted as ever to him and have zero desire to jump on. They have no idea like that can be a thing, because that's not where they're at right now. They simply have no idea what I'm talking about. So this idea that women just choose to turn off their sexual desire for her husband is completely unfounded. In fact, I believe most women, if they could choose it, would absolutely love nothing more than to just snap their fingers or wave a magic wand and have that aspect of herself restored. So attraction is part of the equation here, but so are hormones. So this lack of knowledge of what's going to happen to her body and her sex drive as she goes through menopause is purely just ignorance. Another myth of why a woman doesn't want to sleep with her husband is that being a good husband is good enough to invoke desire. Many men believe that being a good husband is all that is required to invoke sexual desire. That if he just goes to work, that if a dangerous situation happens to arise, and he does his best to defend and protect, these two things are the only things that is necessary for a woman to just be ready to go all the time. But if providing and protecting was sufficient to invoke desire, we wouldn't have a 50% sexless marriage rate. From a woman's point of view, protecting and providing is very basic. Every man can and is expected to do that. And when you do average, you get average. And while it's true that being a shitty husband can certainly block her sexual desire, being a good husband just by itself won't do the trick, because that's not where sexual desire comes from. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you've made it this far, make sure you have also subscribed. And you just might want to stick around for this next video, which YouTube seems to think that you're really gonna love. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.